There's no signs of that being totally wrung out of the system, but there's ease now on credit, there's less spending in the economy, and to stimulate the economy, the US announced 50 basis points, it'll follow on to Europe.
Generally speaking, the stock market is now 15%.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. When most of the history on interest rates, when you go back, and I remember vividly the early 90s, particularly 90, 89, well, I remember 87, who forgets that? Stock market crash, property market correction 89, and the early 90s were terrifying for our parents. The baby boomers, and interest rates, depending on whether it was credit card debt, commercial debt, or domestic debt, blew out to 17, 18%. And everyone got through that. 4 years later, in '94, they fell back down to where they are today, mid sixes. So the interesting thing about this, when you go back and study history, is that one thing's for certain: when you read deep into monetary and fiscal policy with governments, particularly the US and Europe and Australia, they are absolutely terrified of taking their hands or their off the wheel. And that's exactly what happened in the early 90s, that they started to see some ease in inflation, started to ease interest rates in the late 80s after the property correction, which followed the 87 stock market crash. And then what happened is that they started to ease interest rates too quickly, and then inflation got away. It was a raging bull that sort of was it was a financial virus for 4 years, and it took them a long time to contain that. They are absolutely petrified, particularly West and the East, China, to be sure that they've wrung this inflation out of the system. There's no signs of that being totally wrung out of the system, but there's ease now on credit, there's less spending in the economy, and to stimulate the economy, the US announced 50 basis points, it'll follow on to Europe. Today, as we speak, whether they ease interest rates or leave them on hold, it'll be 25 basis points at best, or they'll remain on hold. I think we're a while away from easing interest rates beyond that. The bank sector is saying the interest rates, the four top banks and Macquarie Bank are all saying to me that they expect 2 interest rate decreases between now and Christmas, which might mean 0.5 to 0.75%. Time will tell. The cost of credit is easing because there's lack of sentiment or desire for spending in infrastructure, because labour costs are still too high. So, the banks are trying to encourage, they need to make a margin on that capital. So I think it's a slow process. I think 18 months to 2 years, it's certainly, there's more probability of interest rates coming off, certainly 1 to 1.75% from where we are today, at 4.35 as the swap. So I think that's comfort, but obviously it's the most painful element of people suffering from those interest rates at the moment are certainly the mums and dads and the home borrowers, particularly if it's non-deductible debt on a house that they've probably overcommitted on,